Shalom, brothers. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Barak Thumb. First of all, Barak the Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Tawada Amun, and double honors to the elders, and shalom to you brothers out there. Today's show is going to be about the connection between slavery and the financial district in New York. Now, when most people think of slavery, they tend to associate slavery with the South. But what a lot of people don't know is that slavery actually started in New York. And with the exception of Charleston, South Carolina, New York had the greatest number of slaves in all of America.
It's been 3 years since the financial crisis crippled the American economy, and much to the consternation of the general public and the demonstrators on Wall Street, there's not been a single prosecution of a high-ranking Wall Street executive or major financial firm, even though fraud and financial misrepresentations played a significant role in the meltdown.
So what we're looking at here is an old picture or painting of the tip of Manhattan circa 1651. Back then it was known as New Amsterdam. Now the triangular slave trade made a major stop in New York before it went to the Caribbean islands. And the slave ships was owned by a company called the Dutch West India Company. You had the Dutch West India Company. You also had the Dutch East India Company. The Dutch West India Company came to New York and traded slaves for molasses and for rum, and also straight up sold them at the slave auctions. Now, it was an estimated amount of 40,000 ships that came through the triangular trade for more than 400 years, with an average of 80 persons per day. And the profits they used to make off the slaves are ridiculous. For example, around 1675, when selling slaves was at its peak, a slave could be bought in West Africa for $355 and sold in New York for $3,793. Now, as you can see on this map, which this map is called the Costello Plan, if you want to look it up, you can see the slave ships coming in and docking on the lower east side of Manhattan. That's the East River there on the bottom portion of the map, and all along the coast there of Manhattan are piers where they would unload the cargo, which included slaves and other material, and then they would move the slaves on to go be sold. Here's another version of the same map. This map has street names, and as you can see, a lot of these street names you'll recognize, like Wall Street, Broadway, we have Bowling Green, we have Pearl Street down here. And if you're from New York or you recognize the Manhattan area, you'll notice there's a lot of street names that are not present here, or even some street names that you don't recognize. This is because since those times, Esau has dumped a lot of landfills on the coast of the tip of Manhattan to build more businesses, and there's a lot of streets that are there now that did not previously exist. Like, for example, Water Street and Front Street. Now, I'm going to blow this up because I want to bring attention to Wall Street. Now, most people, when they think of Wall Street, they're thinking of the whole financial district as Wall Street, which is incorrect. Wall Street is actually named after a wall that was built by Israelite slaves. And by the way, all the names here in Lower Manhattan are all Dutch names. These are the English versions of the names. For instance, Wall Street is actually Wallstraat, Waalstraut, if I'm spelling it correctly. These are just the English versions. And Wall Street, as you can see, surrounding Wall Street, going outlining some of the coast over here on the west side, um, is an actual wall, and it was built by the slaves for the Edomites to protect them from the English Edomites, because these were the Dutch, and also to protect their investments from Gadites raiding them, and also to prevent slaves from escaping. Now, if you notice, there's a lot of buildings here, a lot of houses. If you look here, where I'm highlighting, there's a lot of houses here. There's a lot of trees and farmland. This was all built by slaves, Israelite slaves. All of this entire thing here. So here we have a more updated 3D map of the lower Manhattan. And if we look here, we can see this is the East River, and this is where the ships came in, the slave ships to dock. And as you can see here, there's actually some ships that are docked right over here. But over here is where Wall Street is, and there's also a pier here. Now remember, in the times we're talking about, the water was pushed up a lot more than this. So let's go down into Wall Street. And if I turn around, you can see here's the river where the ships used to float down, and they used to dock the slaves right off the coast here. And if you notice, there's no wall here like there used to be. They took everything out that would remind them of the wickedness that they've done, and to basically to hide what they've done. And that's why you don't hear about this on in schools. You don't hear anything about the slave activity that went on in New York. Now, if we go up Wall Street some more, we're gonna go up to Wall and Water Street, which should be right here. Now, this corner here of Water and Wall Street, in 1711, the first New York slave auction was built here. Now, a lot of the pictures of the slave auctions that we use on the camp signs and that you brothers use for your signs, a lot of them came from the slave market or the auction that used to happen right here on Water and Wall Street in New York. So what happened is the slaves would come in. And they would bring them up Wall Street, and they would bring them to this market here. And here they would be traded, they would be bought, they would be sold. And also this acted as a workforce. So if you needed, if a cracker needed a slave to work on whatever, they would come here, and this was like a labor ready type of thing for them. Now, right across from the slave market, right here, this is 82 Wall Street. 82 Wall Street, back in those times, used to be a coffee shop. It was called the Tontine Coffee Shop. And what happened is the slave owners, the slave buyers, the traders, when they left the slave auctions, and even when the ships docked on Wall Street by the river, they would come here, they would count their inventory, they would make trades, they would make business deals with different slaves. And back then, slaves were stock, because, you know, we know what money is. Money is gold, silver, land, and livestock. Well, back then, and even today, slaves were considered as livestock. So those were riches, and that was stock. So right here at the Tontine Coffee Shop is where they used to do their trading and their stock investments. And this eventually became what is known today as the largest stock exchange in the world, which is a New York Stock Exchange.